listening to the Touch 'em Up podcast. I'm your host, Double M, and on today's episode, we have UFC 307, Pereira versus Rountree Jr., live from Salt Lake City, Utah, with a main event for all the striking fans in the UFC between the best kickboxer in the world, the best striker in MMA, and Alex Poatan Pereira, taking on another man who can light you up on the feet with brutal Muay Thai combinations and skull-crushing punching power in Khalil Rountree Jr. Then, in the co-main event of the evening, you have a battle for the UFC Women's Bantamweight Championship between the champion and Raquel Pennington, defending her title after winning the vacant strap against Mayra Bueno Silva, against the woman who defeated the Lioness, the woman who defeated who many people believe to be the women's GOAT in Amanda Nunes, in the returning Julianna, the Venezuelan vixen, Pena. So without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. All right, guys, we're back. We just posted our Contender Series picks for this week, Week 8, and now we are looking forward to Salt Lake City, Utah for UFC 307. We did pretty well on the UFC Paris card. We went 8-3 on our podcast. Went 10-4 overall in terms of actual picks. I'm kicking myself that I didn't pick Moicano on the podcast because I said that I was not a fan of Benoit Saint-Denis. I said that I did not think he was that good, but I thought he was going to be able to find a finish. And I should have just gone with my gut because my original pick was Moicano. I mean, I think you could kind of tell by the way I broke the fight down that my original pick was Moicano. But at the end of the day, I ended up going with Saint-Denis, and Moicano just took him down, battered him up, beat him up, bloodied him up, and got the stoppage in between the second and the third round. Money Moicano, doctor stoppage in his opponent's hometown. UFC Paris was decent. The main card was good. The prelims were a little bit lackluster. Morgan Charrier got a big knockout over Gabriel Miranda. And then Brendan Allen lost to Imavov. I think that was the correct decision. I do think Joe Anderson Brito got robbed. I'm not going to sit here and bitch and moan and complain about it, but I do think that Brito won the first 2 rounds and then Gomes won round 3. But it was a little bit of hometown Paris cooking where they gave the decision to Gomes because I do not believe Gomes did enough to win that fight. I also called for a finish on Brian Battle. He came through big. We had a decent night of picks. Balaji Oki started the night off pretty bad for us. It looked like he was going to start it off good. You know, he was piecing up, dunking on the feet, landing shots, bruising him up, bloodying him up, and it just didn't go his way. He shot into a guillotine and got choked out. But, time to look forward and time to move on to UFC Paris, and that's what we're going to do with the first fight up in the welterweight division between Court McGee and Tim the Dirty Bird Means. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this fight. We know what both of these guys are like inside the cage. McGee likes to come forward, kind of embrace the grind with his style, uses heavy wrestling, take the opponent down, beat him up on the ground, look for submissions, and look to win a lot of minutes in terms of control time. He's not the best striker. He does have decent power. He was able to come through and beat Alex Morono, and that was something I didn't think was going to happen. With Tim Means, he's a much better striker than Court McGee. If this fight stays on the feet, Tim Means can definitely knock out McGee. He can definitely piece him up. He has okay takedown defense, some decent jiu-jitsu, but a lot of the times it's his chin that gives out, and aside from that, he can be taken down and can be submitted. Sometimes he'll get rocked and submitted, just like what happened against Kevin Holland. And in this fight, I think Court McGee definitely has a path to victory because I don't think the takedown defense of Tim Means is that great. But I do think he's going to be able to stuff enough takedowns from Court McGee. I think he's going to be looking to get into the clinch, land knees, land elbows, try to catch McGee coming in with knees up the middle as he tries to change levels and gets the takedowns. I think he's a lot sharper, a lot cleaner, a lot crisper on the feet than Court McGee in terms of his combinations. But he can be knocked out. If Court McGee hits him with a big shot, he does have some power. He might be able to knock out Tim Means. He might be able to rock him enough to be able to get a takedown or jump his way or find his way into a submission victory. This is a pretty volatile fight. This fight can kind of go either way, but I am going to lean towards Tim Means. I think he's just sharper, cleaner, crisper, and I think he's also going to be the faster fighter on top of the better technical fighter, and I don't think Court McGee is going to be able to hold him down for 15 minutes. So I'm going to take Tim Means by a second-round knockout. I could see it in the first round, but I think he's going to hurt McGee on the feet, put some combinations together, stuff a couple takedowns, and then eventually hurt him enough to get the ref to jump in and call a TKO victory for the Dirty Bird. Give me Tim Means, second-round TKO over Court McGee. I think he should look pretty good here, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if he got caught because he is a little bit, chinny. Up next in the light heavyweight division, you got a battle between Ryan Spann and Ovince St. Preux. I've broken this fight down already. I've broken it down before. You can't really trust a guy like Spann because even though he looks like he has all the ability to win every fight that he's in, he makes bad fight IQ decisions and can be clipped and knocked out himself. Very, very, very good hammer, very powerful guy. I mean, knocked out Dominic Reyes with a jab, but can easily be put down and finished as well. And usually when adversity starts to come his way, he can't seem to get the train back on the tracks and going in his direction. Once it starts to roll downhill, it just continues to snowball and snowball and snowball until he either loses a decision or gets finished. Usually it's going to be getting finished most of the time. Ovince St. Preux has power, but he's very slow. He can't really take a shot anymore. He beat Kennedy and Chukwu, which I can't believe, but I think we've learned that Kennedy and Chukwu is kind of just like Ovince St. Preux, hot and cold. Looks really good in some fights, looks really bad in others. Did have a knockout win over Carlos Olberg, though, who's kind of steamrolling the light heavyweight division at the current point. Has a fight coming up against Volkan Oezdemir, which is going to be a tough matchup for him, but I think he's going to get the job done there. I'm going to go Ryan Spann. I think he's just too fast and too powerful for OSP, but if OSP was able to clip him and rock him in the first round and catch him on the chin and knock him out, would not surprise me at all. If I'm betting this fight, I'm taking fight to end by KO. I would say maybe under 1.5, but I'm not too confident in that, but I do think the fight ends by knockout. I'm going to take Ryan Spann. I think he has a little bit more left in the tank. I think he's a lot more powerful and a lot faster than Ovince St. Preux as well. So I'm going to go Ryan Spann, first round knockout, but it wouldn't surprise me if OSP knocked out Ryan Spann. It wouldn't surprise me if OSP outstruck Ryan Spann and started to win the longer that the fight went, but I got to go Ryan Spann. Give me Ryan Superman Spann, first round knockout over Ovince St. Preux. All right, up next, a battle in the middleweight division. You got a fight between a former light heavyweight in Ihor, the duelist Potieria, taking on the man who fought Alex Pereira in kickboxing multiple times in Cesar Almeida. 5-1 for Cesar Almeida coming off the decision loss to Roman Kopylov. 20-6 for Potieria, who's coming off that first-round submission loss to Michel Pereira. Listen, man, Potieria is not bad. He has a good straight left hand. He's a very intelligent southpaw. He moves well, moves in and out, straight left down the pipe, get the outside foot, right hook, straight left down the middle. And Cesar Almeida can be hit. He can be hit. He can be clipped on the chin. He can be rocked, and I do think that Potieria would be smart to use his grappling in this fight, change levels, get some takedowns, and use top control time. We saw Roman Kopylov get multiple takedowns against Cesar Almeida. We saw Cesar Almeida get taken down and held down pretty much in the first round against Dylan Budka, and then pretty much the same thing in the beginning of the second round, but he was able to work his way up to the feet, stop the takedowns, land the elbows off the takedown defense, and then outstrike him. I just don't believe that Potieria is at the level of an Almeida when it comes to the striking. Almeida can be hit, but I think Almeida's going to be able to land combos on Potieria. I think he's going to be able to hurt him. I think he'll be able to hurt him to the body, hurt him up top to the head, chop the low kicks pretty well. But like I said, Potieria would be smart to use the grappling, use the wrestling, take a page out of Roman Kopylov's book, and try to win this fight on control time and land some ground and pound from the top. And then if you do start to slow down Almeida, then you can start to put combinations together on the feet because he is an intelligent striker. Uses a good jab, jab, good straight left hand, good right hook, straight left down the middle. And he knows how to put combos together well. Not the best defensively, but he looked good against Britchik, who I thought was going to win that fight pretty easily. Almost knocked him out in the first round, but it didn't end up going that way. And Potieria started picking up the longer and longer and longer that the fight went. I like Almeida here, though. I think that he is much more technical than Potieria. I think he has a lot more power than Potieria on the feet. And as long as Potieria doesn't clip him with a big shot or take him down and hold him down, I think that this is Almeida's fight to win. I think a lot of people are going to think first round knockout. I actually like playing the same thing that I played in the fight against Dylan Butka, which is Cesar Almeida KO round 2, round 3. I think the first round might be a little bit of a feeling out process. I know he got bum rushed and finished by Michel Pereira. Cesar Almeida can definitely hurt him in the first round and put him down. But I do think Almeida probably makes it to the second round, starts making the reads, starts picking him apart towards the end of the first, and then gets him out of there in round 2. So I'm going to take Cesar Almeida, second round knockout or TKO over Ihor Potieria. Like I said, Potieria does have some good qualities. He's got a good straight left hand. He has some decent striking. He sees shots pretty well, but he's not at the level of an Almeida, and I don't think he's going to be able to take him down and hold him down, even though he is dropping down from a bigger weight class, so he might have that strength advantage. I think it's going to be hard for him to hold Almeida on the ground if he does get those takedowns. So I like Cesar Almeida to win. I think he starts picking up the pace, starts picking up the tempo, starts making the reads more and more towards the end of the first, and then in the first half of the second round, I think Almeida starts to put the combos together, lands a big shot on the chin of Potieria, hurts him, puts another combination together, a little flurry, and puts down Ihor Potieria. Give me Cesar Almeida via second round TKO over Ihor Potieria in this fight. All right, up next we have a battle in the women's strawweight division between Marina Rodriguez. Marina Rodriguez 17-4-2 taking on Lasmin Lucindo, 16 wins and 5 losses. Man, this is a close one. This is pretty tough for me because at first when I saw the underdog price tag on Marina Rodriguez, I thought she was kind of an instant bet. I thought it was an instant pick to put some money on the underdog in Rodriguez because Rodriguez is a great striker. She's a very technical, methodical kickboxer, uses her range very well, pumps out the jab, uses the 1-2, good inside the clinch with elbows and knees to the body and to the head, chops low kicks extremely well, all in the same. But she has an issue with pressure fighters, and she has an issue with getting pushed against the cage, getting controlled in the clinch, and getting taken down and controlled once the fight hits the mat. Now, Marina Rodriguez is going to be the better striker, but Lucindo is decently technical in her own right, and she kind of reminds me a little bit of a different version of an Amanda Lemos. Now, I think Amanda Lemos is at a higher level than a girl like Lucindo, but I think they have a similar style to where Lucindo's going to be able to try to crash that pocket and try to throw big overhands, big hooks, big straight shots down the middle, chop low kicks, move in and out, but she has the wrestling and superior jiu-jitsu to take the fight to the ground if it's not going her way. And Marina Rodriguez, yes, she can stuff takedowns. She can stop people from taking her down, but at the same time, she doesn't have the best takedown defense, and she also doesn't have the best get-up game. She did showcase a decent get-up game in her fight against Michelle Waterson, but Waterson is not the best wrestler. She's decent with the jiu-jitsu. She's decent with holding positions, for a certain amount of time. But eventually you'll be able to get back up. And we knew that at kicking range, Rodriguez was going to be at a disadvantage. But in the boxing range, Rodriguez was going to piece her up. And I feel like that was kind of a gimme fight, at least for Marina Rodriguez. She's got a 65% takedown defense rate. Lucindo, 53% takedown accuracy. She shoots about 2.23 takedowns per a 15-minute fight. If you look at the striking, 4.82 landed per minute for Rodriguez, 3.95 for Lucindo, 47% accuracy, 46% accuracy, and Lucindo's actually better defensively. It looks like they take the same amount of strikes, but on the numbers, she defends 66% of the strikes thrown her way, but takes 3.11, lands 3.95, pretty much take one to give one. Marina Rodriguez lands about 2 more than she takes. So she's better defensively. I think we would expect that, but I think the style of a Lucindo is the exact style you need to beat a girl like Marina Rodriguez. Getting on the inside, big hooks, big overhands, big uppercuts, and being able to go to that ace of spades, being able to get takedowns, being able to push Rodriguez against the fence, being able to use inside and outside trips, and being able to control the fight once the fight hits the mat from the top position and threaten with submissions and land ground and pound as well. I think Lucindo is the more well-rounded fighter when it comes to breaking this matchup down. I think if it stays a primary kickboxing matchup, then Rodriguez is definitely live as the underdog to land the crisper, cleaner boxing combinations, punctuate her kicks with punches with kicks, punctuate it with knees, land strikes inside the clinch. But I think that the looping style of Lucindo, although it can leave her open for counters from the sharpshooter in Rodriguez, we've seen Rodriguez get pushed back. We've seen her get caught by, some more wild strikers, and we know that Lucindo can resort to the wrestling and get those takedowns and probably win minutes on the judges' scorecards if the fight does go to a decision, which I expect it to do. I'm going to go with Yasmin Lucindo. I'm going to go with Lucindo 29-28. I'm going to say split decision. I have a feeling that it might be close. Rodriguez might be able to kind of tire out Lucindo. If Rodriguez wins, I would play 2-3 TKO because I don't think she would get her out of there early. But if she does start to defend takedowns, if she does start to work up to her feet, if she does start to get her jab working, then she probably can put her combinations together and break a girl like Lucindo down the stretch. But I think Lucindo's good enough on the feet. She has a decent enough amount of power, and she can also use her wrestling to control where the fight takes place, and that's why I'm going to take her to win this fight. Give me Yasmin Lucindo 29-28, split decision in a victory over Marina Rodriguez. Up next, we have a very interesting matchup in the welterweight division between Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Joaquin New Mansa Buckley. Honestly, man, this fight is a tough one to call because on the feet, I give the power advantage to Buckley. Very Mike Tyson-esque bob and weave style, in and out, shooting in with straight left hands, right hooks, rolling underneath, left hand, right hook, roll under, uppercut hook. He'll throw head kicks as well, but he's going to be at a disadvantage on the feet against a guy like Wonderboy. I know some people are going to sit here and say that Wonderboy's getting old, Wonderboy has issues with this, with that, and everything in between, but I think if Buckley stands and strikes with Wonderboy for 15 minutes, that Wonderboy either knocks him out or wins 2 out of the 3 rounds and probably wins a decision. I think the biggest difference here is the grappling of Joaquin Buckley that we saw him use against Vicente Luque and that we saw him use most recently against Nursultan Ruziboyev. If you're able to take down and hold down a guy like Ruziboyev, even though he's not like the best wrestler or grappler, I think you should be able to take down a guy like Stephen Thompson. Now, Stephen Thompson has gotten better with his takedown defense, but realistically, I think it should be pretty easy for Buckley to get takedowns against a guy like Wonderboy. If you look at his grappling stats, it's 1.69 takedowns per 15-minute fight, but I think you can also translate that into the fact that once he gets those takedowns, he's usually able to hold you down. If you're a really solid and effective grappler, which I'm not necessarily saying Buckley is that, but if you are a really effective grappler, you can get one takedown and win the round based off ground and pound, setting up a finish. Well, obviously, if it's a finish, you would win the fight, not the round, but you know what I mean. He only has a 44% takedown accuracy, Wonderboy with a 65% takedown defense rate. If you look at the strikes, it's 4.11 strikes landed per minute for Wonderboy, 4.25 for Joaquin Buckley. Buckley lands 36% of his significant strikes. Stephen Thompson lands 46% of his significant strikes, and they both take about the same amount. Buckley takes 3.12, Thompson takes 3.03. So Thompson lands 4.11, takes 3.03, basically lands one more than he takes, and Buckley lands 4.25 and takes 3.12, pretty much again landing one more strike than he takes in terms of the overall fight. Defense, 54% for Thompson, 58% for Buckley. I think Thompson is the much better defensive fighter. I don't care what the stats say. I don't care what it says on UFC.com. I think Thompson is a lot harder to hit. I think Thompson is a lot better defensively. I do think Buckley has more power, but I also think Thompson is such a good counter striker, even though he's getting older, to the point where the longer that Buckley stays on the feet and strikes with Wonderboy, he's viable to get himself countered and knocked out. We've seen him countered on the way in against Nursultan Ruziboyev, but he was able to change levels and get the takedowns. We saw him get his kick caught and countered against Chris Curtis, who I do believe is much, much stronger in terms of his punching technique than Stephen Thompson, but I do think the speed and in and out movement adds to the explosiveness of Wonderboy to the point where he might be able to clip Buckley stepping in and hurt him. I don't think Buckley has that great of a chin. I think his chin is a little bit overblown. He can take a shot, don't get me wrong, but he's got knocked out by Kevin Holland. He got knocked out by Chris Curtis. He did get rocked for a second against Ruziboyev, but then was able to change levels and get the takedown. And I really think that's what it comes down to. If Buckley can get these takedowns and employ his wrestling, he's a lot bigger, a lot stronger than Wonderboy. He's also younger. I think he probably is able to hold down Wonderboy. And, he's very active with his ground and pound as well. The minute he got Vicente Luque down to the ground, he landed a couple shots, noticed that Vicente Luque was covering up, and he just went through with the ground and pound, hooks, straight, and mixed it up very, very well. And I do think that Buckley has a huge advantage if the fight hits the mat. If the fight stays on the feet, Buckley has power. Buckley moves well in and out. He throws those big counters, looping, slip, bob and weave. Very Mike Tyson-esque, like we've talked about before, and like we talked about at the beginning of this specific breakdown. I think this is kind of a coin flip, but I'm going to side with the fighter who I think can use his grappling to win the fight the longer that it goes. I would love to see Stephen Thompson win this fight. I would love to see Thompson knock out Joaquin Buckley. I do think that that's possible. But I think Buckley's going to be able to land some shots on the feet, close the distance, and get takedowns against Wonderboy Thompson. So I'm going to go Joaquin Buckley. I'm going to go Buckley 29-28 unanimous decision. I think Wonderboy can hurt him. I think Buckley can also hurt Wonderboy. If it stays a kickboxing match for 15 minutes, although I do think Buckley's competitive, I think Wonderboy would eventually just tee him up and counter him left and right, kind of like he did against Kevin Holland. I think it's a little bit, it would kind of be a similar situation where Holland had a good advantage and probably could out-grapple Thompson. He didn't do it. He stayed on the feet and struck with him for too long. Buckley seems to have the fight IQ to be able to use his wrestling and know when to use his wrestling in the certain matchups that he's given. So I'm going to go Joaquin Buckley, 29-28, unanimous decision. Maybe a ground and pound TKO. I think that that's possible because we saw him do it against Luque. But yeah, give me Buckley. Give me New Mansa. Again, I'd like to see Wonderboy win, but I just think the wrestling is going to be too much, and I think Buckley's going to be too strong once the fight hits the mat for a guy like Wonderboy. So give me Joaquin, New Mansa, Buckley to get the job done, 29-28, unanimous decision. Up next, you have a battle in the middleweight division between Roman Dolidze taking on Kevin the Trailblazer Holland. Realistically, I'm kind of surprised that Holland's not a bigger favorite, and I think it's more due to his lack of focus at certain times, which is part of the reason I picked Michael Venom Page against him. But I'm not going to pick against Kevin Holland in this fight against Dolidze. I think that he is not going to get smashed if Dolidze takes him to the ground. I think he can defend most of the submissions. And I know we've seen Holland get submitted before. He got submitted by Khamzat Chimaev, but I think Chimaev could submit a guy like Roman Dolidze as well. So I don't necessarily think you could take too much from that when breaking down the fight. I think Holland's a lot better at range than a guy like Dolidze. I think he throws a good 1-2. His 1-2 is very crisp, very clean. And yes, Roman Dolidze is a guy who we've never seen get knocked out before, but that doesn't mean that he hasn't been hurt. That doesn't mean that he's not capable of being hurt, and that doesn't mean that he can't get finished himself. I know it's not likely he gets finished, but I think if anybody could finish him, it would probably be a guy like Kevin Holland, who's long, rangy on the feet, throws a good 1-2, throws decent kicks, and, can threaten with submissions as well. If he rocks Dolidze and Dolidze shoots a bad takedown, might be able to lock up a ninja choke, might be able to lock up a Darce choke. We've seen Holland get some submissions in his UFC career. This guy is a Travis Lutter brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he will threaten with submissions. You don't want to be on the ground against a guy like Dolidze because Dolidze is a world-class BJJ black belt. But we don't see him get too many submissions. He mainly uses the jiu-jitsu positions to land strikes and throw shots from the top, just like we saw against Jack Hermanson. If Holland tries to roll around, gets a little reckless, and leaves himself in a bad position to where Dolidze can put both hooks in, put in a body triangle and flatten him out on his belly, then maybe that's a position where Dolidze can win via ground and pound TKO, or soften him up enough to the point where he could probably grab his neck and lock up a rear naked choke from the back. But I like Kevin Holland a lot here, and like I said, I'm kind of surprised he's not a bigger favorite. Dolidze's very slow. He's powerful, but he's slow. And I know we saw Michał Oleksiejczuk rock Kevin Holland, but I think Roman Dolidze is nowhere near the level of striker that Oleksiejczuk is, but he does have a lot of power. Maybe he can clip Kevin Holland with a big hook or a big knee, a big uppercut on a level change and rock him. I think Dolidze is live to hurt a guy like Kevin Holland. I think Dolidze has the better jiu-jitsu, but I think Holland can compete on the ground, and it's going to be harder for Dolidze to take him down. So I like Kevin Holland here. I think Kevin Holland wins. Again, picking a finish against a guy who realistically hasn't been TKO'd, but we've seen him get hurt before. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go Kevin Holland by a second-round TKO. I really love second rounds, don't I? That's one thing you could say about this podcast. I pick a lot of second-round finishes. But I think he can get it done. I think he can hurt Dolidze enough, land some shots, let him back up to the feet, hurt him again, and potentially wins a decision. If you're going to play it, I would play a Holland KO decision. I even think a little sprinkle on Holland by submission is live, because if Dolidze gets hurt, he might panic wrestle and shoot a takedown and leave his neck out there for a guy who's got multiple Darce chokes in his MMA career. He's very long, very rangy, can throw up arm bars off of his back. Like I said, this guy's no slouch, even though Dolidze, I believe, is the better jiu-jitsu grappler. I think that Kevin Holland can definitely compete with him if the fight does hit the mat. At least, submission for submission. So I'm going to take Kevin Holland, second round TKO. You know what? No, I'm going to switch it. I'll go Kevin Holland decision. Let's say that Dolidze survives. He's able to take a lot of damage and survive. I'll go Kevin Holland by decision. 29-28 unanimous decision for Kevin Holland. I think Holland should be a bigger favorite here, but I understand, he fights to the fans, what the fans want sometimes instead of what he should actually do. But I think this fight's going to give him the opportunity to showcase his striking a lot more than some people think. So give me Kevin Holland, 29-28 unanimous decision. I think he wins as the favorite, and I think it's a pretty good matchup for a guy like Holland. You just have to worry about where he's at mentally, because he will kind of, fly away from the game plan and not do what he's supposed to do. But Dolidze, I don't think, has enough to beat a guy like Holland. So give me Kevin Holland, 29-28. Unanimous decision. I think he wins, and I think he wins on the scorecards. All right, up next in the women's bantamweight division, we have a pretty interesting fight between Ketlen Vieira, who comes in at 14-3, versus the Olympian Kayla Harrison, former PFL champion, coming back at 17-1. I think this is pretty much striker versus grappler. Vieira has decent grappling, and she has really good takedown defense. 92% takedown defense rate. Kayla Harrison is going to be the better wrestler. She's going to be able to probably get Vieira to the ground. But if this fight stays a striking matchup, Ketlen Vieira wins. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Kayla Harrison's invincible. She lost to Larissa Pacheco, and it was a pretty, I won't say a dominant loss, but like you knew that she lost that fight. And I don't think she has much of anything for Ketlen Vieira on the feet. Now, we've seen Vieira get knocked out by the likes of Irene Aldana, so we know that she can be hurt. Kayla Harrison's a big, powerful girl. She has good ground and pound, good submissions, and she dominated Holly Holm. I mean, completely and utterly crushed her. Took her to the ground, beat her up, landed some shots, and then eventually got the submission. I think she can do the same thing against Vieira, but at the same time, like I said, with a 92% takedown defense, can Kayla Harrison compete with Ketlen Vieira on the feet? No, I don't believe so. I think if the takedown defense works, then Ketlen Vieira wins this fight. She puts combinations together better. She throws good shots, but she doesn't have the most volume, so, you never know. Doesn't have the greatest volume on the feet, so if she gets taken down and controlled, but lands some decent shots on the feet, she might not land enough in order to win those rounds. I think it is going to be hard for Harrison to get takedowns, but I do think she will get them. And I think it's mainly going to be head and arm throws, inside trips, not traditional takedowns. And I think that's going to make it harder for Vieira to defend them. And I think once the fight gets to the mat, I think Harrison's going to get to the mount. I think she's going to land some ground and pound. And I think she's going to get a rear naked choke finish. Now, listen, I've told you this before. I'll say it again. I'm not a Kayla Harrison fan. I've never been. Congrats to her for the style she can employ. She's very good at what she does. Very good hip throws, very good tosses, very good inside and outside trips, very unorthodox grappling more than wrestling. She uses a more grappling base than a wrestling base when she gets her takedowns. And I think that's what's going to be the difference. I don't think Vieira is accustomed to defending takedowns at the way Kayla Harrison is going to execute them. And I think it's going to be very hard for her to get up when she gets to the mat. And like I said, I think if it stays on the feet, then Vieira probably wins a mainly striking fight. If it's mainly striking, I would bet on Vieira more times than I wouldn't. But I do think that the unorthodox takedowns are going to work for Kayla Harrison. I think she's going to get to the top, land some ground and pound, take the back of Ketlen Vieira, and get a rear naked choke. And that's going to be my pick. I'm going to go Kayla Harrison, second round, rear naked choke, a little bit of a club and sub scenario. I wouldn't be surprised if Ketlen Vieira won. I think from a money line perspective, it's a dog or pass. Maybe sprinkle Kayla Harrison TKO, because I think she can get ground and pound TKO. Maybe she wants to make that little bit of an extra statement in this one. But I don't think she should be a huge favorite. What is the line on Kayla Harrison? Let's see. Kayla Harrison is a minus 800. Yeah, at that point, it's dog or pass. I think it's worth sprinkling a little bit on Ketlen Vieira. Maybe Vieira by decision, maybe Vieira by TKO. I think it's worth sprinkling because I don't think Kayla Harrison is that well-rounded of a mixed martial artist. She's just very good at what she does. And I think she's going to be able to use her takedowns to get to the top and eventually get that submission or potentially ground and pound. But if you're asking me to bet, I would say it's a dog or pass situation because I think Vieira can outstrike Kayla Harrison, land more shots, and outstrike her at range as long as she can stop the takedowns. But that's a big if she can stop the takedowns. Give me Kayla Harrison, second round, rear naked choke submission. All right, up next, probably my favorite fight to talk about on the entire card. In the featured bout of the evening, you have a battle in the bantamweight division between the returning number 10 ranked Jose Aldo Jr. taking on the 11 ranked Randy Steinke trained Mario Bautista, ranked number 11 in the division. Bautista minus 175 is a favorite, plus 140 on the underdog in the King of Rio, Jose Aldo. Honestly, I think this is a tough fight for both guys, and I think there's a tough fight for both guys for different reasons. I think Aldo is the much faster boxer. I think that he puts his combinations together very well. We can pretty much take away the grappling of Mario Bautista in terms of executing actual takedowns because Aldo is nearly impossible to take down. I mean, just look at what Merab Dvalishvili did to Sean O'Malley and look at the fact that Merab couldn't even get one takedown against Jose Aldo and just had to hold him up against the cage. I kind of think Mario Bautista can use a similar approach to where he might hold Aldo up against the fence and land knees to the thighs, knees to the body, look to land elbows over the top in the clinch. But, I picked Aldo as the underdog against Jonathan Martinez, and I'm not going to do it here against Mario Bautista. I'm going to be taking the favorite in Bautista, and I'll explain why. I know he had a decently close fight with Ricky Simón, and then Simón went and pretty much got dominated by Vinicius Oliveira. But I think Mario Bautista, he's good enough on the feet to make Aldo respect him. It's not going to be easy for Aldo to land combinations on a guy like Bautista who's constantly changing his angles, constantly changing his stances, and does have decent boxing in his own right. Now, yes, I believe Aldo to be the better boxer. I believe Aldo to have the faster combinations. But at the same time, I think that Bautista, switching stances, throwing those kicks, making Aldo, keep honest in the fight is going to make it harder for Aldo to really unleash his combinations. A lot of people, like I said, are going to point fingers to the Jonathan Martinez fight. And let me explain to you why you can't do that in this fight with Mario Bautista. And it's the fact that Jonathan Martinez is mainly a kicker. You have a guy who doesn't really use his boxing too much. In most of the fights that Martinez wins, yes, he has a decent straight shot. Yes, he has a decent jab, but a lot of the times he's using the fakes and feints with his hands to throw the big leg kicks, to throw the big body kicks, to throw the big head kicks. And Aldo knew that as long as he could get on the inside and close that distance off, he was going to have the advantage both in terms of technique and in terms of speed against a guy like Jonathan Martinez. Now, Mario Bautista is a guy who can hold cardio for 15 minutes. We saw Aldo slow down in the later rounds against Jonathan Martinez to where he made it a little bit more competitive, but then he rocked Martinez and shot that big takedown and got him down to the ground. I think if anybody implements takedowns in this fight, it probably would be Aldo, and it probably would be a similar situation to the Martinez fight where he's able to land a big shot, rock Bautista, feint up high, and then change levels and get a takedown. But I think it's going to be a mainly striking matchup, and I think based on the fact that I know Aldo is going to slow down towards the end of the second round and in the third round, even though we haven't seen him slow down as much at 35 as we did at 45, I still think he's going to slow down, and I think Mario Bautista is going to be there for the majority of the fight. I think he's going to be there in that late portion of the second round, putting combinations on a guy like Jose Aldo. But, switching stances, orthodox and southpaw, throwing hook cross, 1-2-3, 1-3-2, 3-2-2. Or I'm sorry, 3-2-1, 1-2, mixing up his combos, throwing head kicks of his own, throwing leg kicks of his own, pushing the pace against a guy like Aldo, where yes, Aldo's going to be able to counter off the back foot. Yes, Aldo's going to be able to throw his combinations. He's going to be able to rip to the body. He's going to be able to punctuate his combinations with low kicks. But I think Mario Bautista is going to be a guy where when Aldo does slow down, I think Bautista can take advantage of that slowed down Aldo and really punctuate the rounds and maybe even get a late finish in this fight. I'm not calling Bautista the greatest finisher, but I think there is a world where he slows down Aldo enough with his forward pressure and his combos and his stance-changing combos to the point where he might be able to wilt Aldo and break him in that third round, break him in the beginning, middle, or end of that third round. And I think it's possible he does get a TKO. If I'm betting on a finish for a guy like Bautista, it's round 2-3 TKO, 9 out of 10 times. But when I really break this fight down, I do think Bautista wins, but I'm going to go with Mario Bautista to win by decision. But I think he clearly makes a statement in round 2 and then wins the third round by being the fresher fighter, by being able to push a higher pace than Aldo. He might lose the first round, but I still think it's going to be competitive, and I think he's going to be able to stay in the face of Aldo and push forward, push the pace, and win the rounds by slowing down the older King of Rio. I like Aldo. Like I said, I picked him as the underdog against Jonathan Martinez. I just don't feel like I can pick him against a guy in Mario Bautista who's going to change stances, who's going to throw his combinations, who has good knees up the middle, who can throw kicks to the legs, to the body, and to the head, and does have the grappling to rely on where even if Aldo gets the takedowns, Bautista can work his way back up to the feet and even threaten with submissions to make Aldo kind of shy away from those takedowns. But I think it's going to be mainly a striking fight, and I think at the end of the day, it's going to be the pace of the younger, fresher Mario Bautista that's going to be able to slow down Aldo in the second half of the second round and into the third round, and I think he's going to win by a decision. Would not be surprised if it was a second or third round TKO, late second, early to mid third round TKO though, but I'm going to go decision. Give me Mario Bautista 29-28, unanimous decision to get the job done over Jose Aldo. Now we're at the co-main event of the evening in a battle for the Women's Bantamweight Championship. You have the champion in Raquel Pennington, who came off that unanimous decision win over Mayra Bueno Silva to claim the vacant Bantamweight Championship after Nunes retired. And you have the woman who beat Amanda Nunes in Julianna Pena via I believe it was a second round rear naked choke submission. And yeah, man, when I look at this fight, I think it's very close. I think it's a coin flip. I completely discredited Raquel Pennington in the fight against Mayra Bueno Silva. And I think that was more me just overestimating the skills of Mayra Bueno Silva. But then if you go and you look at Bueno Silva taking on Macy Chiasson, she was beating her ass. She was beating her up, taking her down, pretty much dominating the fight until she got hit with those elbows from the bottom and ended up getting cut, and the ref had to stop the fight due to that cut over the eye. Macy Chiasson wins that fight via TKO, but she was clearly losing that fight and was probably going to lose that fight by a finish or potentially a decision. So the win still looks good for Raquel Pennington. Pennington also has a decision victory over Ketlen Vieira. I think Pennington's a good fighter, and I think Pennington is a fighter who has been counted out multiple times in her career, and I've been one who's done it. She's 16-9 going up against the 12-5 Pena, but she's currently on a 6-fight win streak, which means she was 10-9. She's coming off 6 wins in a row. Wins over Mayra Bueno Silva, wins over Ketlen Vieira, via split decision. Win over Aspen Ladd via unanimous decision. Prior to that, she had a win over Macy Chasson via submission in round 2, and Chasson got that win via TKO over Mayra Bueno Silva. She also has a win over Pani Kiansad via decision and a win over Marion Renault via decision. Her last loss actually came against Holly Holm via a unanimous decision. That was back in January of 2020. So she hasn't lost in over 4 years with wins over Marion Renault, Pani Kianzad, Macy Chasson, Aspen Ladd, and Ketlen Vieira. She did lose to Germaine Durandamy as well. So her last 3 losses came to Amanda Nunes, Germaine Durandamy, and Holly Holm. The Amanda Nunes fight, she wanted out of there way before that 5th round. She didn't really have much offense. She was basically a punching bag for as long as the fight lasted. And, she stayed in there. She was tough, but she told her corner that she was done. The corner didn't stop it. There was a bunch of, controversy when you look at that fight. But, if you look at both fighters, Germaine Durandamy wins unanimous decision, but she submits submits Julianna Pena. And there's just a lot of things you can look at for this fight, and I think it makes it very difficult to break down. I like the fact that both of these girls are junkyard dogs, but this is why I'm going to be picking Julianna Pena. Newsflash, I'm taking the underdog. And it's mainly because I think she can push a higher pace than Raquel Pennington. Now, we've seen Julianna Pena get submitted by Valentina Shevchenko with an armbar, and we saw her also get submitted with that guillotine by the kickboxer in Germaine Durandamy. Raquel Pennington has good wrestling, good top control, and good jiu-jitsu, but she can get herself in bad positions as well. She's got good submission defense. She stays calm and stays patient, but I feel like the fighter who's going to have better cardio in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round is going to be a fighter like Julianna Pena. I think Raquel Pennington has better boxing, but I don't think her hands are super crisp and super clean. Pena has a good jab. Pena has a good one too. But I think when it comes to putting combinations together, I would probably give the slight advantage to Raquel Pennington. Raquel Pennington is a tough son of a bitch. She is a tough girl, and she's going to come forward and try to get you out of there. She's on a huge win streak. She's got a lot of confidence, but I think a fighter like Julianna Pena is a fighter who can give Pennington some trouble. Mayra Bueno Silva doesn't have the best defense, neither does Julianna Pena, but I think Pena is a girl who can take all those shots and continue to move forward, continue to get in the face of Pennington. I think she can compete with her on the ground. Pennington's probably going to have the better wrestling, while Pena has the better jiu-jitsu, and I think Pena can win the scrambles. I think Pena can push a higher pace in that 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, and I really think that's what it's going to come down to. I think Pena has more dog in her than Raquel Pennington. And I'm not saying Pennington's a quitter, but we've seen her want to quit against Amanda Nunes. Even though Pena was getting dominated, getting destroyed, getting beat up, she never thought once about giving up or throwing in the towel. And I really think that's what this comes down to, is mentality. Because I think Pennington's going to land some good shots. I don't think Julianna Pena has the best defense. I think the better striker overall is Raquel Pennington. But I do think when it comes to mixing up the martial arts, when it comes to pushing a pace, when it comes to biting down, getting nasty, getting dirty, and trying to find a way to win, I feel like Julianna Pena can do that more than Raquel Pennington. Pennington can lock up a guillotine. Pennington can go for submissions of her own, and we have seen Pena get submitted like we talked about, but I think Pena is going to be able to push a higher pace. She's going to be able to take the shots of Pennington. She's going to be able to come back with counters of her own, using her jab, using her 1-2, pushing Pennington up against the fence, not being afraid to get into those scrambles, not being afraid to get into those clinch battles, not being afraid to make Pennington fight for positions. I think there's going to be points where she gets put in bad positions and Pena almost gets a submission and she gets out. I think there's going to be positions in the fight where Pennington gets to the back of Julianna Pena or gets on top, goes to lock in a submission, but Pena is going to fight out of it. And I think Pena is going to be the fighter that really pushes the pace in that 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. I know she's been on a layoff. I know we haven't seen her in a long time, since that loss to Amanda Nunes, but I think she's going to be able to push a higher pace in those championship rounds, and she's going to be able to squeak out 3 rounds out of the 5 and win this fight via a unanimous decision. I'm going with Julianna Pena to become a 2-time UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion via 48-47 unanimous decision, 3 rounds to 2 against Raquel Pennington. I like the pace Pena pushes. I like the fact that she never quits. I like the fact that she's in there for a full 25 minutes. And yes, Pennington can do that as well. She fought very well against Mayra Bueno Silva, even though it was close at certain points. She's got good boxing. She's got good combinations. Pena will get hit, but she's not going to quit on herself if she gets rocked. She's not going to quit on herself if she gets put in a bad position. She's going to continue to fight and push forward and try to find a way to win no matter what it takes. And I really think that's what's going to be the difference in this fight. Give me and new Julianna Pena, the Venezuelan vixen, to become the new UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion via a 48-47 unanimous decision victory. I'm going the Venezuelan vixen, baby. Let's move on to the main event. In the main event of the evening for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship of the world, you have a battle between the champion and Alex Pereira, defending the gold against the standout striker and kickboxing specialist in Khalil Rountree Jr. Man, I really think that people are sleeping on Khalil. Let me start off with that. A lot of people are immediately going to see what Pereira's done for them lately and how good he's looked at light heavyweight and pick him to win and pick him to win by knockout. 100% reasonable. Makes a whole lot of sense. And he definitely can knock out Khalil Rountree. But if you're sleeping on a guy who not only is a southpaw and not only has the power to knock out Pereira, then I don't know what to tell you, because I would not be surprised in the slightest if Khalil Rountree bonked Pereira and knocked him out. 100%, I'm telling you right now, if Khalil Rountree lands a bomb on the chin of Pereira, he might knock him out cold. It might be a one-shot KO. Would not surprise me one bit. However, when I go back and I watch the tape, I see Khalil slow down. And I've seen him slow down in 3-round fights. I've seen him slow down in the second. I've seen him slow down in the third. And even against Anthony Smith, he was slowing down, but he was just landing big bombs on his chin. You know, the lead uppercut to the back straight left. The straight left hand he landed on Chris Dawkins, that little right hook straight left hand. The knockdowns to the body kicks he landed against Carl Roberson. I mean, this guy is legit. Khalil Rountree is one of my favorite fighters in the light heavyweight division, along with Alex Pereira. Like, I'm really excited to see this fight, but I don't want to see either guy lose. A lot of people are saying that this might be the fight where we see Pereira use his grappling, we see Pereira use his wrestling, and I would not be shocked one bit if he hurt Khalil Rountree. Khalil tried to close the distance and maybe shoot a takedown, and we saw Pereira lock up a guillotine choke. I've said it in the Yuri Prohaska breakdowns. I'm going to say it again. I would not be surprised if Pereira sneakily won this fight by submission. Now, would I sit here and tell you that's the best thing to do, the best thing to bet on, it's going to happen? No. I mean, it's a very low probability, but I think that this is a fight where we can definitely see some more of the grappling of Alex Pereira. I also think we don't really know how good the grappling of Khalil Rountree Jr. is, because even if he gets fighters to the ground, he wants to stand up and just beat you up. He wants to kick you in the ribs, knee you in the body, wait till you stand up, check right hook, straight left hand. And that's the thing, man. This is orthodox versus southpaw. The last southpaw we saw Pereira fight was Jamal Hill, and he made quick work of him, knocked him out in the first round. I know people are going to say, well, you know, the ref this and the groin kick and whatever, and Pereira closed the distance. Whatever you say, it doesn't matter. The way the fight was playing out, we were headed in that direction, and it doesn't matter what the delusional Jamal Hill says. I mean, we were headed in the direction of a Pereira KO. But, you know, you never know. It's mixed martial arts. Jamal Hill has a good straight left hand, a good head kick. Maybe he could have knocked him out, but I think Pereira had figured out Jamal Hill from the minute that fight started until the end. So, when you look at this fight, big power on Khalil, really solid technical ability, good straight left hand, good body kicks, good inside and outside low kicks, and good head kicks as well. Not good head kicks, but good body kicks, good straight left, good check right hook. And it's going to be the left hook of Alex Pereira versus the check right hook of Khalil Rountree Jr. That's how this fight's going to play out. Who's going to get that outside foot position? Who's going to get to the outside? I 100% believe, like I said earlier, that Khalil Rountree is live to knock out Alex Pereira. If you're betting on this fight from a money line perspective, it's dog or pass all day. And I don't pick against Alex Pereira. I also don't pick against Khalil Rountree Jr. very often. I have done it before, but again, it doesn't happen very often. So, I think the last time I picked against Khalil was against, I want to say I picked Carl Roberson, which was a terrible pick. But the one I really remember is I picked Dustin Jacoby to win by decision. And I think a lot of people believed he did enough to beat Khalil Rountree, win the second, win the third round. But the judges gave it to Khalil, and a lot of people didn't agree with it. Breaking this fight down, though, man, I see that the power is big on the side of Khalil. Khalil is live for a KO, but I can't go against Alex Pereira, man. I can't. Moneyline perspective, it is a dog or pass with the power, the technical skill, and the explosiveness of Khalil Rountree. Definitely moneyline, it's dog or pass. But when I break the fight down, I just think that Pereira stays so calm and so patient. He kind of deflects punches off his gloves, deflects punches off his forearms, throws those low kicks very well. He throws them with no windup, which makes it harder for opponents to counter. But we have seen opponents come over the top and counter with an overhand right, come over the top and counter with a big shot. Izzy did it, and so did Jan Blachowicz. I wouldn't be surprised if Khalil Rountree was bracing for the kick and then just timed a left straight right down the middle and knocked Pereira out cold. Timed it, came back with a right hook and knocked him out. I might throw a little bit of money on Khalil Rountree. I'm by knockout. Probably Khalil Rountree KO 1-2 because I think if he does it, it's early and I think he catches the champion off guard. But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, I'm going to pick Alex Pereira. I'm going to go in still. My pick is going to be Pereira to win by first-round knockout. I know Khalil's good. I know Khalil is a good striker. I'm definitely not counting him out, but I think Pereira is going to find that opening. He's going to hurt Khalil. Khalil's a guy we've seen get hurt before. We saw him get knocked out by Iwan Kutelaba. We've seen him get rocked in other fights. We've seen him get put down, and I wouldn't be surprised if he got knocked out again early. I'm going to go Alex Pereira. I'll switch it up. I'll go second round. I'm going to go Alex Pereira, second round knockout. If Khalil wins, it's in the first 2 rounds. I think Pereira lands some big shots. Khalil lands a big shot, maybe rocks Pereira, but Pereira's able to pull away, deflect the shots off his forearms, move out of range, and come back with counters of his own. But I think eventually that left hook of Alex Pereira is going to come around the side. I think it's going to be a right hand, a 1-2, and bang the left hook as Khalil Rountree circles out. I think he's going to get hit, get put down, and get finished. Give me Alex Poatan Pereira and still the UFC light heavyweight champion via second round knockout over Khalil Rountree Jr. But like I said, from a betting perspective, it's pretty much dog or pass because Khalil is live to get a knockout here. That's going to be it for my UFC 307 Pereira versus Rountree Jr. preview predictions, and breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed my breakdown. I did just post my Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series predictions last night as well. So if you haven't checked those out, be sure to do so before Week 8 takes place tomorrow night. I'm your host, Double M. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and smash the notification bell with a tomahawk elbow to catch all future uploads from the premier mixed martial arts and pro wrestling channel on YouTube. I'm your host, Double M, and I'm out. Let's make some money on Saturday night at UFC 307.